Bama, Tennessee, one of those special rivalries in the SEC, and they get together again as they always do each November, this time in Tuscaloosa. It was a barn burner, of course, one of the great games of 2022 in Knoxville last year. We got Stephen M. Smith, Touchdown Alabama here. Also, In My Own Words is the show you need to lock in on every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here on YouTube. In My Own Words, 6:30 Central. Stephen, how you doing today?
Doing good, Mark. You got the Alabama-Tennessee third Saturday in October rivalry here coming up this weekend. You mentioned last year a crazy game, 52-49 the final. Hendon Hooker, Jalen Hyatt, what a game those two had. They're both now, of course, in the National Football League. Josh Heupel earning him a contract extension. He's now making $9 million a year annually. So now the matchup comes to Tuscaloosa, to where, Coach Saban trying to avenge one of those two losses from last season. Alabama right now a 14-point favorite the last time I checked from Vegas there. But we know Saban cares nothing about point spreads. We'll see what happens on Saturday.
Although, if I recall, he did suggest that they be used in the college football playoff formula last season.
He did say that. So maybe there is a slight appreciation from Nick Saban on point spreads.
Well, Stephen, we know in the SEC there are so many just great rivalries that go on each and every season that continue the illustrious history of this conference. LSU's become a rivalry through the ages. Auburn is Auburn. It's the Iron Bowl. There's nothing like it. This Tennessee rivalry, how would you categorize this rivalry for Bama?
I think of it as kind of prestigious hate, if you will, because it started with Paul Bear Bryant and General Robert Nealon. So it started with those two, but it's progressed tremendously since then. Of course, everybody likes to puff the victory cigars after each game just to show, hey, I beat you. And I can taste a quality cigar to show that I beat you. But I felt like, prior to last year, the rivalry had gone one-sided under Nick Saban, with Alabama taking, all of that, the win since 2007. There were some close calls against Tennessee. I remember 2015, the final score was 19-14. Of course, there was some other, close matchups. 2014, I remember that final score was like 34-20, something like that. It got closer there in the second half with Blake Sims, but last season was the first time where it was that kind of action. The game was back and forth. Bryce Young, Hendon Hooker going back and forth there. And the way it ended with Tennessee getting a knuckleball of a field goal to go through, you win 52-49, the fireworks go off, the goalposts come down. There's still a CBS camera still in the Tennessee River out there. And, Josh Heupel's been waiting for a while to get that box of cigars, and he grabs it, and he starts to celebrate there. That was for the first time in over a decade, Tennessee fans had the hope of, we can really beat these guys. We can really beat this team. We can really, give Nick Saban a loss there on the resume. So it has progressed since the times of Bear Bryant and General Nealon. But I felt like last year, Josh Heupel gave this program something it hadn't had in a while, and that is real, true hope that not only can we compete with Alabama, but we can beat Alabama and actually put ourselves in a situation where we can compete for, a college football playoff spot or a New Year's Six Bowl, which the Volunteers got last season.
Some people claim that if the rivalry is not won by both sides somewhat consistently, that if it's dominated by one team, it's not a rivalry anymore. I don't agree with that. Alabama, Tennessee is always going to be a rivalry to me, but 15 consecutive years is a long, long time. All sorts of Tennessee fans had not tasted victory. So that was, I know, not fun for Alabama fans to watch, but it was one of the great games of recent years, definitely.
It was, and it was one where, it kept you, Mark, on the edge of your seat because you didn't know what was going to happen. You had a lot of penalties in that game, a lot of big plays in that game, different turnovers that swung momentum. The crowd at Neyland Stadium I've never heard the crowd rock like that. Like, that was deafening crowd, and it was crazy. Like, that was getting out of that stadium was pandemonium in itself, because once again, Like you mentioned, these are Tennessee fans that had never seen their program take down Nick Saban. So imagine leaving that arena, your first win over Nick Saban in what 15 plus tries, and you finally get it, and you finally grab that cigar for the first time in your life, and you're able to light that sucker up. It was pandemonium leaving that place, Mark.
I'm going to date myself, Stephen, because when I was covering Alabama football back in the mid to late 90s on into 2000, it was the exact opposite. Bama couldn't beat Tennessee, and the various run of quarterbacks, Peyton Manning, of course, and T. Martin and that crew. So things flipped awfully quick. And of course, a guy named Nick Saban had something to do with that, I believe. Uh, you mentioned, Stephen, the pandemonium there, and that it was just about the loudest you've ever heard Neyland Stadium. Just the opposite at Bryant Denny in the second half last week against Arkansas. Things got a bit nerve-wracking there. It looked like it was under control, 24-6, and I got extremely interested in that second half as Arkansas came back and Bama almost let one slip away.
Bama did, and Coach Saban talked about it after the game on, of course, Saturday in the post-game presser, and then Monday to start this week. The team kind of took its foot off the gas there in the second half, which has been unlike this Alabama team these last few weeks, especially on defense. This has been a group under Kevin Steele that really keeps the foot on the gas in the second half, especially when you talk about you shut out South Florida in the second half. You hold Ole Miss to 3 points, Mississippi State to 7, and Texas A&M to 3. So to give up 15 points to Arkansas, that was kind of a shocker right there, especially with the team that's gone through some injuries. It's had some heartbreaking losses. The offensive line not where the Hogs would like for it to be, but Sam Pittman's guys, they play hard. That bunch plays extremely hard, offensively and defensively, and one statement to that character of the play that KJ Jefferson made. Terrion Arnold has this man for a sack, and KJ, as strong as he is, throws off Terrion Arnold, is able to scramble out of the pocket, complete a pass for a first down, and they get a touchdown on that drive. So that just shows you Sam Pittman's guys, they play through the whistle. That's a hard-fought football team, and Saban kind of disappointed that his team let up on the energy. They let off the gas, and they allowed Arkansas an opportunity to get back in that football game and almost take one away.
Stephen, I'll flip us back to two positives coming out of that game that at least my takeaways. One would be you brought up Derrick Henry and salting away that 19-14 win in 2015. Well, this team did something similar with Arkansas with the momentum coming back and things getting a bit nervous there in the fourth quarter. They took the final 5.5 minutes and they just ran it down their throats for the most part. Did complete a key pass to Niblack, I believe, to extend the drive, but basically just ran it down their throats and did what Alabama football is expected to do with the run game with the game on the line.
That was huge, and you're starting to see more of this running game come to life here. The main thing is, can Tommy Rees continue to trust that as a play caller, and at the same time, the development of his offensive line with Eric Wolford? I like what I'm seeing from redshirt sophomore Jaden Roberts, young man who came as a 4-star in that 2021 class from Houston, Texas. The guy is big at 6'5", 320. He's highly athletic. He can move inside as part of the meat there of an offensive line. Love seeing his progression. Want to continue to watch him grow and get better as the season moves forward here. But this is what you want to see. You want to see these backs average 5+ yards a carry. I know the sacks that Jalen Milroe took the total number of rushing yards down from 217 to 177. But at the end of the day, Jace McClellan had 83 yards rushing. He had over 5 yards per carry. Roydell Williams over 5 yards per carry. Jam Miller over 5 yards per carry. When Justice Haynes got opportunities over 5 yards per carry. So this is what I would like to see Tommy Rees take more advantage of, is when you're seeing your run game rip off chunk yardage, when you're seeing your offensive line starting to have success putting their weight on an opposing defense, continue to work with that.
This may be a much different identity than the Alabama offense has had in quite some time. But at the same time, I think it is important that they do have an identity here. And when they go to the air, and I just had a segment with a Tennessee guy, and I let him know because he said, this is a much different Bama team that doesn't necessarily threaten the secondary because he's concerned about Tennessee secondary. And I said, well, when they do go to the air, I think only 21 times last week, hit on 10 passes, but Milroe is going for the dagger and they are hitting these deep throws.
They are. And you go back to the A&M game for a minute here. 6 of Milroe's 21 completions were for 20 plus yards. And that led all quarterbacks in week 6 of the college football season. And then to start the Arkansas game, he was hitting them 79-yard touchdown, 29-yard touchdown, 48-yard throw. So the deep ball accuracy has not been an issue with the Milroe. The issue is the consistency on those short to intermediate routes. That's the issue. The issue is those 10, those 7, 10 to 15-yard routes and being consistent with those, having that ball come out on time. There are instances where there's indecisiveness with Milroe in terms of, do I let it go now? Do I run now? Do I take off now? And that slight bit of hesitation gets him into trouble. And that's just on the short to intermediate game. He's got to get that fine-tuned. But the deep ball route, taking the jugular, taking shots down the field, there's no issue there. He's been able to do that, and he's done that pretty well since high school. For him, it's, can he mix in a bit more consistency in the decision-making of letting that ball go cleanly on those short to intermediate routes?
We've got Stephen M. Smith here breaking things down for us, as he typically does just about each and every week here at the Voice of College Football. We appreciate Stephen dropping by. You can catch his complete work. You got the rest of the crew there at touchdownalabama.com. You've got Stephen's show, In My Own Words, right here on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 6:30 Central. Folks, make it an appointment with Stephen to talk Tide, to talk the SEC. And this is one of the great things about college football and with the personnel changes is that a lot of things change from year to year. And we think of Tennessee, we think, well, they scored Will. They got a questionable defense. I'll be kind. Questionable defense. They scored Will, but that's not necessarily the case. Joe Milton may be having some issues, but focusing on the defense, and as we stay with the Alabama offense, Tennessee is no joke on defense. They held Texas A&M to 13 points. A lot of talk that they have one of the best front sevens in the SEC.
Tennessee typically has good defensive front play. And this even goes back to the times of Big Albert Haynesworth. We saw what Shy Tuttle did during his time at Tennessee, Derek Barnett. They've had guys. They've had a list of guys in the defensive front that can play, that can flat play. And they have those guys on this year's team that can affect the quarterback. So I expect a lot of different defensive tackle in stunts. I expect a lot of outside linebacker twist movement. I expect some things to be thrown at this Alabama offensive line. The Tide may have to use maybe a tight end, maybe a running back to help chip, just due to Coach Saban explained why J.C. Latham, talented right tackle, did not flip to left tackle this season. He wanted JC to remain on that right side and have a freshman or a younger player develop there on the left side, which is kind of eerie because normally in years past, Saban has had a guy play at that right tackle spot, for 2 years. And then by your junior year, he transitions you over to that left tackle position. Not the case here with J.C. Latham. So whether you go Caden Proctor on that left side or Elijah Pritchett on that left side, if they need to have help, you may need to have a tight end stay in, chip blocked in, and put you in some max protection situations. It'll take somebody out of a pass route. But Tennessee's got guys in that defensive front that are going to want to get after Milroe the same way they were able to affect Bryce Young a bit last year in getting that 52-49 win.
Folks, you may be watching here on the SEC channel. Please subscribe. If you're watching this on the main channel, we've got an SEC channel. You can get the description, the link in the description section of the video. So please check out what we've got to offer on our SEC channel. And of course, Stephen M. Smith and In My Own Words, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right here on YouTube, 6:30 Central Time. Well, anytime there's this kind of game and you pack the stadium and it's a big environment, then that's a great way to showcase the program for the recruits. Looks like a big recruiting weekend in Tuscaloosa on Saturday.
It's going to be quite a few receivers are making their way to Tuscaloosa for this one. Quite a few offensive linemen, but I think the big question coming up here on the recruiting pipeline is, Mark, is 2025 wide receiver. 2025 wide receiver Ryan Williams of Saraland High School in South Alabama region here, a 6A product that's tearing it up right now. The question for him, he's a 2025 kid. Does he reclassify? There's a lot of conversation going on. Nothing's been confirmed yet, but there's a lot of conversation, a lot of rumor mill talk happening. He's done a lot at the high school level to this point. Does he choose to reclassify, come out in 2024? If he chooses to do that, because he stated that he's locked into Alabama, schools are trying to flip him. Texas is in there. A&M, Jimbo Fisher's in there trying to see, can we flip this kid away from the state of Alabama? Can we get him to come elsewhere? He has stated on several occasions he's committed to come to the Crimson Tide and play under Coach Saban. If he decides to reclassify and comes in 2024, now you look at, he could come with Julian Sand. Should Sand hold his commitment to Alabama, the young man from Carlsbad High School in California? So could you imagine if you get a 5-star quarterback in Sand and a 5-star wide receiver in Ryan Williams, both coming to Alabama in the same 2024 class? That could be highly intriguing. But that's the big story right now is, does Ryan Williams stick with the 2025 class? He could come out with Jamie French, young man from Florida, who is committed here to the Crimson Tide for 2025. Or does Ryan Williams decide to reclassify, come out 2024 class, and come to Bama with Julian Sand?
Well, of course, Stephen, anytime we see Alabama and Tennessee on the same field, we know it's mid-October, and we know that stretch drive in the SEC is coming, LSU, Auburn, and the rest of them. So this is the time to win. No doubt about that. And with a loss on the table already for the Tide, they obviously don't have much margin for error. They do possibly in the SEC West, depending on how that shakes out. Certainly don't want to lose to LSU because they still control their own destiny as well. So it should be exciting coming up here in the next 6 weeks.
It should be. And it's also big for Alabama to start landing, Mark, some dominant wins. We all know at this time of the year, what does the College Football Playoff Committee like to see? How did you control your opponent from start to finish? And so we've seen Alabama some close games this season, starting with Tennessee. Can it begin marking off some matchups where it can pull away from the opponent quickly and effectively and show the committee we are concretely one of the best 4 teams in the country in the last year of the 14 playoff as you go to 12 teams starting next year?
Stephen M. Smith, touchdownalabama.com. In My Own Words is the show you need to catch right here on YouTube. It's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6:30 Central. Stephen, you have your great time at the game. We always appreciate you stopping by.
Thank you, guys. I thank you, Mark. I will have myself some fun there, and I will also keep my eyes on making sure that food is on point this week.
There you go. All right, Stephen, you do that. We'll see you soon.
All right.